Hey everyone, and welcome. So, if you're looking for a really fantastic topic for your next language exchange, something that goes way beyond just swapping vocabulary, you have definitely come to the right place. Today, we're diving deep into the powerful and uniquely Japanese concept of Mottainai. Okay, let's jump right in. This is not just any old word. The late Nobel laureate Wangari Maathai was so moved by the idea behind Mottainai that she truly believed it held the key to global environmentalism. I mean, she actually pushed for the entire world to adopt it. So, what is it about this one single word that's so incredibly powerful?
If you look it up in a dictionary, you're probably going to get the translation, what a waste. But honestly, that barely even scratches the surface. See, what a waste is all about what you lost. But mottainai, well, that's a feeling of regret that's aimed at the object itself. It's kind of like an apology for not letting it live up to its full potential, mixed with this real sense of gratitude for the nature that made it and the people who crafted it. It's a totally different way of looking at things.
So, here's our game plan for this explainer. First up, we're going to unpack that core feeling. Then, we'll dig into the spiritual and historical roots that gave birth to this whole idea. After that, we'll get into a really fascinating modern paradox happening in Japan. And finally, we'll get you all set up with the words and questions you need to talk about this with a language partner. All right, let's start by getting to the very heart of what this word truly feels like. So here's the thing you have to get. Mottainai is an emotional response. It's that little pang of guilt you get when you throw away leftovers you could have eaten, or when you see some resource just being squandered. In Japan, this is a core moral lesson they teach kids from a super young age. Don't leave a single grain of rice in your bowl. It's almost like you're supposed to treat objects with a kind of love, almost as if they have feelings themselves. But where does this deep, deep respect for things even come from? Well, to really understand that, we need to look back at the centuries of history and spiritual beliefs that shaped the whole idea. The origin of the word itself gives us a huge clue. It comes from a Buddhist term, Mottainai, which means something like the essential nature or the true purpose of an object. The nai part just means lacking or absent. So when you say Mottainai, you are literally saying the essence of this thing is being lost. It's like you're violating its very reason for existing. Heavy stuff, right?
And this is all tied up with the influence of Shinto animism, this belief that a spirit or a kami lives in everything. And I don't just mean in trees and rivers. I mean in man-made stuff too, like your tools, your clothes, even your old umbrellas. It's actually why Japan has these ceremonies like Harikuyo, which is a memorial service for old broken sewing needles to thank them for all their hard work. It's just a totally different mindset where you don't just throw away a partner in your daily life. And this example, this just shows the Mottainai spirit in practice perfectly. During the Edo period, Japan was an absolute masterclass in recycling. So take a kimono. It would be worn by an adult, then it'd be remade into clothes for a child. Once it was too worn out for that, it became a cleaning rag, a zokin. And when it was literally nothing but threads, it was burned and the ash was used as fertilizer. Nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, was wasted.
And if you think that's impressive, get this. Even human waste was a valuable commodity. Yeah, farmers would literally buy it to use as fertilizer for their crops. This was a truly complete, zero-waste, circular society. Which brings us to a huge modern contradiction. Because if this spirit is so deeply baked into the culture, then what in the world is going on in Japan today? This is the question every single visitor asks. You hear all about this incredible spirit of avoiding waste, and then you walk into a convenience store and you just see plastic. So much plastic. I'm talking individually wrapped bananas, cookies in their own little plastic tray inside a plastic bag, inside a box. So how can both of these things be true in the same culture? Well, the paradox really comes down to a clash of deeply held cultural values. You've got the spirit of mottainai, pushing to avoid waste. But then you have another incredibly powerful value, omotenashi, which is all about hospitality, pushing for perfect, hygienic, beautiful presentation. And at the same time, this deep respect for food clashes with modern food laws because of super strict expiration dates and aesthetic standards for produce. So, all that extra packaging, it isn't necessarily a sign that people don't care. It's often a reflection of omotenashi, of showing respect to the customer by giving them something that is perfectly clean, totally safe, and beautifully presented.
It's a classic case of two really positive cultural values ending up in a head-on collision in the modern world. But the story doesn't end there. A new movement, especially among younger people, is really starting to fight back against all this modern waste. Food banks are becoming way more common, and these amazing apps have popped up that let you buy imperfect vegetables that would have just been thrown away otherwise. The spirit of Mottainai is definitely being rediscovered.
Okay, time to get you ready for your language exchange. Here's the key vocabulary you're going to need to have a really great conversation about all this. First up, a really simple and direct word, mudana, which means wasteful. This is your perfect go-to adjective for any situation that feels mottainai. You know, like saying, it's just wasteful to throw away perfectly good food. Now, to connect this to the bigger picture, you'll want the word for sustainability, which is jizoko kanose. This lets you say really smart things like, mottainai is deeply connected to the concept of sustainability. And to talk about that modern paradox we were just discussing, the key term is kajohoso, or overpackaging. It's the perfect phrase for a sentence like, foreigners are often surprised by the overpackaging in Japan. And to explain those deep spiritual roots, you can just use the word for animism, animismu. This really helps explain that deep respect for objects. For example, Japanese animism teaches that spirits reside in all things, even tools. And finally, to describe that amazing historical system from the Edo period, the modern term is junkongata keizai, or circular economy. You could explain that Edo period Japan was a perfect example of a circular economy. Now, to really get the conversation flowing, here are a few questions you could try. Ask your partner how their country balances sustainability and convenience. Talk about whether you tend to repair old things or just buy new stuff. And maybe discuss the different ways your countries try to prevent food waste. These are just perfect for a really rich, interesting chat. So, I'll just leave you with this final thought. Now that you really understand this feeling of apology and respect for the things around you, take a look at your own life. Where is the Mottainai? Is it the food that's hiding in the back of your fridge, the clothes you never wear, or maybe the time you spend scrolling instead of creating? You know, a concept like this really shows us how a single word can unlock an entire worldview. Every conversation you have is a step into a whole new way of seeing things. So keep learning, keep sharing what you've learned, and most importantly, respect the journey you're on. Thanks for tuning in.